Hey guys, this is Crap Hunter, and welcome back to World of Tanks, woo! And welcome back to the patch 9.2 test server second episode. In today's episode, we're going to have 3 replays displaying 3 vehicles that have recently been changed in the patch 9.2. This one, the Waffenträger Ausführung E100, the VK4502P, and the Object 263. Now, if you're wondering what kind of buffs these things have had, I've got a whole episode where I've dedicated all of my time to explaining all the new things and my first impressions of them. I will put a link to that in the description. Also, I will put a link into the description of the patches and the changes that have been made as well. So if you'd like to get into the itty-bitty sort of details, then feel free to go check that out. Anyway, let's go into the first match with the Ausführung E100 Waffenträger. So here's our first game. I am in my Waffenträger Ausführung E100, and this is a match on Ruinberg. And it's tier 10, and even though this thing's tier 10, it's very low down the list, right next to artillery, so that was inspiring. I will say, this is like my 3rd game in this thing, so I was kind of... I'd had a couple of games in previous test patches, but until then I wasn't really 100% sorted on this one. But unfortunately what this thing doesn't show you is the reload time, but what this reload time was about 52 seconds, because because in the previous one, as you can see, although for some reason it shows it here on the... There you go. So although, weirdly enough, the replay system on this, for some reason, on the test server shows that there's an empty shell, that's actually only 5 shells now. So a bat chat decides to come out in the middle of the time, and no idea why he did that, but he did it. So there's my first kill, and we're just advancing into the town now. All of us, nearly all of us, are charging right into the town line. I'm trying to keep myself very aware, because there is like artillery in play, so, and artillery's already going for our top tier player. So now I'm trying, I also remember the fact that this vehicle is a forward front rear mounted turret, so I'm kind of reversing into place to try and spot targets. So I take my time aiming down the street, making sure we're not going to get flanked. I'm afraid I didn't know the keys to reload on the move, so for all you auto-loading lovers out there, you may hate me. Unfortunately, I don't do auto-loaders too often, so I don't know the keys to reload on the move, but oh well. So our allies are starting to push towards the bat chat when the 113 appears, and slowly but surely we're going to start to push into the town. The 113 decides to charge completely out in the open, and so 2 shells and 1 shell. I reduce his hit pool to pretty much 1 shot. I will say, then I go into a reload. So we're going into that. I will say the gun is fantastic. Like, this thing is a lot of fun to have. Lots of fun to have. So definitely a good idea to try and get it. But anyway, going back to the game, the Foch 155 pushes up on our flank. At this point, I was kind of distracted more with the Jagdpanzer, still kind of forgetting about my reload, and so I use my American or my Russian ally for cover, trying to hide between him. He gets knocked out. Then I spot the Foch. Then the Foch 155 on the map throws in a few shells towards our top tiering player, and I'm moving up slowly, and I think the Foch 155 ran out of shells at this point. So at this point, I decide to take full whelming advantage. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits, 1 last hit. Come on, take me through the building. Gets a kill. I completely annihilated that Foch 155. Freaking awesome. Never done that before. That's actually pretty. I felt like a badass for a moment. So yeah, unfortunately, I could have reloaded, and perhaps I should have reloaded here, but I didn't know the keys. But I thought, well, I might as well go for it. Went to go for his gun. Unfortunately, it didn't work. So, unfortunately, I think I must have been going into that guy's way, which was a bit like, crap. So afterwards, not really doing much. Still got like I'm only a quarter through my reload. So at this point, the game is pretty much over. I think I'm like, okay, this game is pretty much sorted. Jagdpanzer's going down. Halfway through my reload, and that's pretty much the game. Unfortunately, artillery gets overwhelmed, and there you go. So I only was able to fire 2 clips within that game, and that was like, admittedly that was a bit of a rush game, but I was only able to fire like 2 clips worth of ammunition. Obviously, I'm not an auto-loading person, so it'll definitely take some getting used to. But that said, this game was a lot of fun. And looking at this thing, it's not really overpowered. I mean, I think even with this balance now, I think it's actually balanced it better to a degree, because now it's not 60 seconds, it's actually now 52 seconds, which means that you are given, a bit of a fairer chance in competitiveness. And yeah, some people will moan that this thing either wasn't nerfed enough or it was nerfed too much for them. But in all honesty, I think this thing is a pretty decent tank now, and for a person who doesn't auto load much for a few first games, this thing was pretty awesome to drive. So, into the next game, we'll take you to the VK4502P. And here we are in the second game with the VK4502P. Now, in this patch, like I said in the last episode, this tank has received a buff to its frontal armor. The frontal upper glacis of the armor is now 200 millimeters. The under glacis of this is 200 millimeters, and the armor on the TIS section, I believe, is also now 60 millimeters. So generally speaking, its previous role as a tank which was meant to hold down and hold off, like it just proving that shot, is 100%. It's a hold down vehicle now, and luckily it can react better with stuff. Going into the game, we're in El Haluf standard match, and the Lorraine 40 ton decides to go crazy and bull charges a few tier 9s. We're in a tier 9 game. I am part of the top tiering tanks, and I get myself into what I believe to be the best position for this tank, and it looks like at first that our team is going to try and be really aggressive. And at first this was looking like a pretty good thing, as most of the enemy team kind of was sort of spread out, but then the M103 decides to back off, taking one shot. The T26E4s move up. I'm trying to move up and get into position. I'm trying to be cheeky and get a shot in. No, can't really see anything. I try and find a shot, can't really get anything, take a bit of damage, and it's not looking very good. Unfortunately, I haven't really driven to any of these much, so my experience is not too good. But this episode, this battle is more about highlighting the armor advantages, because I've only been penetrated once, and that was only... Sorry, I did get a kill and got the Jagdtiger 88, which is pretty awesome, but unfortunately it's not looking too good on our battlefront. It looks at first we were going to start charging on through, but then unfortunately, unfortunately, however, 2 enemy tier 9 tanks start to charge on through, and I possibly may have made the wrong decision. I'm not too sure. I mean, our team weren't going to be focusing on them. The T-54 was chasing the Type 61, so I made the decision to go back and try and see if I can resolve the situation. And now I'm going to make a note of this because of just how difficult the situation was. The Rain 40 ton gets blown up. So there's my second kill. Unfortunately, I couldn't save the Type 61, and I make a mistake of focusing too much on the T-54 and trying to do something, trying to get a couple of shots in, because then the STI on the enemy team appears, and I actually take this one on the track, which is surprising. And then he decides to bull rush me, which is actually quite a smart move, as he immobilizes me, I take my damage, I fix the wrong thing, and he's got me completely. Unfortunately, the T-54 has lived, trying to get everything sorted. My reload is taking forever. I'm trying to do what I can to get it sorted. The T-54 desperately tries to save me, but unfortunately I am unable to be saved on that one, which is a real bit of a shame. So in this replay, what I wanted to highlight was the effective thickness of the frontal armor, because this thing is pretty... this is the only battle where I think where it highlights this effectively, because when you're trying to angle, even though I'm not very good at, I've not really driven this vehicle much, but I will say I was able to easily get myself into a position where I could angle this and be able to utilize its new better frontal armor, and it is so much better. So much more enjoyable, and I think anyone who drives this vehicle before may have got it and sold it because they weren't happy with it, and now I've got a mouse tank. I would say it's worth getting back into it again, because now this thing has certainly got a serious competitive edge in combat, and especially with its gun. Obviously this was only with just 100% crew, no extra skills or whatever. But I reckon with a good skill, good crew, and a few extra perks and skills alongside, it will be freaking awesome to drive as well. So anyway, let's go to the last match, which is driving the Object 263. So this is the last game we'll be having, and this is in the Object 263. We are in North America. Annoyingly, none of the maps that have been changed, which is rather frustrating. But yes, this is the Object 263. This is the tier 10 of the Russian tech tree, which has recently received a buff. The buff for this specific tank is the fact that it's now got a faster reload, I believe. So I haven't actually driven this before. This was my first and only game in this vehicle, as I hadn't had much time to do it. But I thought, well, might as well give it a go, give it 100% crew, and I was instantly surprised by its maneuverability, which is pretty awesome. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's get into the actual game aspect. So I was advancing a little bit too much for my own good, so I decided to wait for at least a second or two to get ready. And as I was the first tank in the tank game, and in the village, town, whatever, I was a little bit unsure as to whether I should poke my nose too much, but making as much noise as possible so that they couldn't help but tell it was me. So T-57 Heavy is sighted along with IS-3. Trying to see if I can sight him as much as possible. Not looking too good. SDI comes along. Waffenträger E100 is already in position, taking advantage of it. And E100 comes into play. I fire. He bounces with a high explosive anti-tank shell, which is fantastic. So frontal armor of this thing is troll. But the reload, as you can see, well, unfortunately you can't really see the numbers, but the reload is now like less than 10 seconds with 100% crew and a rammer. So obviously, brothers in arms out there, you may be even be seeing 9.5 seconds reload, maybe even 9 seconds. So the E100 is knocked out by another E100. I move up, I take another bounce, another bounce, another bounce, and another bounce. Still no damage taken. Now one more bounce. 416 gets completely annihilated by E100 and the VK4502. The game is going completely to our favour. We've already annihilated nearly everyone in the town. I'm slightly more dubious as to advance because obviously there may be tank destroyers waiting at the end, but this is looking like a steamroll. We're just completely devastated the enemy team. We're now starting to charge right on through. Artillery does hit someone in the rear, I think. And then I spy a Jagdpanzer E100, so I don't advance anymore. Kind of hold back. And 183 decides to go for it. Jagdpanzer E100 decides to reverse out, making his life a hell of a lot worse for a short time that'll be around. And there's the fast reload again. Bang! Fast reload of this thing is ridiculous. It's so much fun. And check this, right? Just killed one person. Swing around to the right. Bang! There's another. If you could see up top the amount of damage I've done, 2,232 already. And also note, that guy's taken a number of bounces, high explosive anti-tank from the T-57, who is now desperately trying to run away, but fails miserably. So this game is a complete whitewash. We have completely annihilated everyone in the town. There are only a number of tanks left, and it's looking pretty... the odds are it's looking fantastic for us. We're just dominating now, which is absolutely fantastic. Loving it. Waffenträger's sighted. Our medium tanks are charging on through. Artillery's going for it. Haven't received any point of damage, by the way. So, I am now going to grind for this vehicle. Very much so. Oh, there's a bit of a glitch. Object 261 sighted along with an E100 and an Object 263. I move into position, trying to get the better shot. Someone shoots, I fire, and I actually set him an ammo racket. That's an extra insult as well, which is pretty cool. And can I go for the kill? I'm like, ooh, can I get a sneaker kill, please? Can I? Pretty please? Come on. No! So, unfortunately, I was denied a scumbag kill. Oh well. But, that said, we did have a ridiculously crazy awesome game. Over 3,000 damage done. Thanks to the reload of this tank. It is ridiculous. I had so much fun. I think out of all the games I had in the test server, this one, my favourite of them all. Because it was so troll. Yeah, I know where I'm going now in my Russian tech tree. So, that's about it for the third replay. I will take you back to the garage. So there you have it, guys. The Waffenträger Ausführung E100, the VK4502P, and the Object 263. All three of these tanks have received pretty, well, not just these tanks, but these tanks in particular have received a pretty impressive series of buffs and nerfs. And to be honest with you, shockingly, they're not overpowered. I mean, okay, Russia is Russia. We all know this. You know, Russia's never going to get away with complete balancing. But the so-called nerfs that they're doing to the Waffenträger Ausführung E100, I actually don't think is a nerf at all. In fact, I think it's relatively fair. You know, I had a blast driving this thing, and I think it's certainly a good, you know, it's a worthy enough nerf. You know, it works. You know, it doesn't make this thing useless. It doesn't make this thing useless. It actually makes it fairer. I mean, as I'm not a big fan of the mouse tank, in all fairness, in this game, I kind of don't think I'll ever go into this tank. I might do in the future, but what I will say is that the armor buff that this thing's had is ridiculous. The 200 frontal armor on the upper and lower and armor here means that this thing is certainly going to be a most deadly opponent in the field of battle. Certainly looking forward to seeing this thing in combat more, because this is a decent tank. Like, even I can see that this thing's a pretty awesome tank. Don't like the design myself, but don't care. It's awesome anyway. And finally, this thing. Oh boy, this thing. Yeah, this thing is ridiculous. I love it. I automatically love it. And the fact that now this thing has got an even better rate of fire just means it's that much more awesome. Less than 10-second reload. A tier 10 less than 10-second reload. This thing's going to be deadly. Anyway, so yeah, all three of these tanks, very effective, very awesome, and I don't think they've been overpowered or nerfed too much at all. So that's about it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this kind of content, do feel free to let me know in the comment section down below, clicking on the like button, and of course subscribing to the channel. If you yourself are a YouTuber, a World of Tanks player, or a World of Tanks player who does YouTube, if there's anything I could do to improve the overall quality of the videos, better commentary, different style of video, anything like that at all, feel free to let me know in the comment section as well. Thank you very much for watching, guys. This is Crap Hunter signing out, and I'll catch you next time.